it's Aaliyah, and today I will be going over beginner-friendly sewing tools. These are my top 5 must-have sewing tools. I use these for pretty much every project that I've done. I use these top 5 tools. So highly recommend all of these. We're going to dive into it. All these tools I got at my local craft store. For me, it's Hobby Lobby. It's the closest thing to me. So let's just get right into it. So my number 1 must-have for beginner sewers is, of course, your measuring tape. I've had this a while. You can see it's kind of ripping apart, but the measurements are still there. That's all we need, sis. That's all we need. You want to get one that's bendy so you can measure the body. I use this to get my clients' measurements everywhere I go. It's travel friendly. I just roll it up. You can put it in your purse, in your pocket, and it just fits perfectly. This length is 60 inches long. You can check at your craft store. The 60 inches works just fine for me usually. Depending on what country you live, I'm in the US, we use the measurement of inches. Some countries use centimeters. That's on the other side. All right, and then my number 2 must-have tool is my chalk. This chalk has been through a lot. It used to be like a full square like that, but this is where you mark your fabric. This is where you want to mark any measurements that you need to do, any sizing. This is where this comes in. This comes in the color of white for your darker fabrics like black. You can see it very clearly. But when you have lighter fabrics, they have a blue chalk as well, and it comes in a pack. The blue works better on lighter fabrics. The white works better on darker fabrics, and this is what you use to mark. They also have a pencil version, if that's better for you to hold, and then they have like a whole nother tool to where it's handheld tool, and the chalk is inserted in the tool. So that works best. I kind of like how it looks. It's kind of cool. It looks like one of those, you remember those like triangular school erasers? Because that was so cool. You could like spin them on the desk. It looks like that, but it's chalk. So that's very helpful if you want to use that. My number 3 must-have tool are a good pair of fabric shears. These are not paper scissors. They're a bit more expensive there, but they are worth it. These cut your thread and fabric like butter, like it's ridiculous how smooth these cut, as opposed to if you just have paper scissors. Paper scissors, they don't cut fabric very well. I tried because I was being cheap. I went, is this like a $30? I'm not paying no $30 for no pair of scissors. Pay the $30, sis. Just do it, because I tried to use paper scissors on some fabric. My fabric came out real jig-jag. It wasn't straight. It kept snagging and fraying, and just, it was a nightmare. So once I got these, definitely invest in a good pair of shears. These cut fabric and thread beautifully. All right, so my number 4 must-have, pens. You need your pens. I used to not use pens, like never, when I started, because I was just like, this is taking too much time. I don't want to. I'm gonna just hold it together while I'm putting it through machine. No, you don't want to do that, because what happens is your fabric will shift and move and bunch, especially when you're working with stretchy fabrics and you're pulling it. Your pins are meant to secure your fabric so that they don't move in your sewing machine. I did not use these at first, and all of my sewing projects came out raggedy. Use your pins. It saves you time in the end. I promise, I promise, I promise. All right, and then my final tool. This is a love-hate relationship, okay? My seam ripper. Here's why it's a love-hate relationship. Usually if you're using a seam ripper, it's either because you're taking something apart, or you made a mistake when you're sewing machine and you have to undo it. I used to mess up a lot of projects, and so I had to take apart the thread that I just sewed with my seam ripper. It has a pointy side that goes underneath the seam or the thread that you've sewn. It has a middle part. That's the part that cuts the thread. And then it has a ball at the end. So once you open up like 3 or 4 seams within your fabric. You want to be careful, take your time, but you can flip this over to where now the ball is at the bottom. This protects your fabric, and you can go in where you've opened up that hole and just pull that fabric through, and you can rip multiple seams at the same time. You do not want to rush when using this. You will poke your fabric, you can tear your fabric, you can rip your fabric. If you're in a rush, if you're frustrated, like I was, and would just try to jam it and run it through, you will rip your fabric and you will have to start all over. But at the same time, this can be a saving grace for you. You want to make sure you're taking your time so that you're not creating nightmares for yourself. I also recommend that you get one that has a rubber backing, because once you go and you're undoing seams, this rubber backing, it brushes off the excess, pulls it right out of that fabric, as opposed to you're trying to use your fingers and you try to pinch individual threads out of your fabric one by one. It's very time consuming. Use your back, just brush it off. But we'll get into that later. So those were my top 5 must-have beginner-friendly sewing tools that I believe all beginner sewers should have. It makes your life a lot easier. It's very helpful. And I do have a bonus. I have a bonus pack. This set here, every project that I have, it saves so much time. I ended up getting a pack of 3 that had a rotary cutter, a clear ruler, then a cutting board. But you use this blade and it has a little guard button there. So you would move the guard down using the button. You get your cutting mat. You can cut right on there. And when you're finished, always make sure you put the guard back on. If you don't feel comfortable using them, please don't, especially this rotary cutter. When I first got it, I pretty much cut my finger and my thumb every time I used it. But it definitely helps speed up the creation process. But that's just my preference. I hope this was helpful. On the next video, we're going to dive into fabrics. We're going to go into fabrics a little bit. We're taking it one step at a time. There for you. We're going to get you there. But for now, that's all that I have. I hope this was helpful. I will see you in the next video.